Good afternoon, everyone. I have to use this microphone because we have a guest who's going to be via the screen from the Czech Republic talking to us today. So we want to make sure that he heard me. So anyway, that's why I'm on this very loud microphone. We have a couple of announcements before I introduce our guests for today. And just wanted to first of all say congratulations to those of you who were in the musical. I thought it was a very fantastic performance, and you had great audiences each night. So I think that that's very telling. And you had a good audience the first night that sort of spread the word. I got to sit with the president at the performance on Thursday, and he is incidentally from Wisconsin, so he enjoyed it very much. Of course, there's several of us who grew up with that show, so there was lots of fun, lots of laughter. So thank you so much for a great performance. We do have a couple of things coming up that you can earn points. The high school honor choir, district honor choir, is Saturday at Joplin High School. That performance is at 4:30, and chamber singers will be opening for that performance. But if you want to earn some extra points, you can come to some of the rehearsal that day and can earn some points if you'd like to, or just come to the concert and you can earn points that way as well. Okay. We do have some other things coming up. So, of course, look at the things that are on the program that Michaela made. Next Friday, I do want to mention that we do have Discovery Day. And so what this is it's geared more towards the juniors in high school, but we could have sophomores and seniors, maybe even some freshmen who might come to that, who are maybe considering performing arts and fine arts as a major. So they'll be on campus. We will have a time of question and answer by the faculty as well as students. We'll let you know exactly, but a few of you, if any of you can be available during the time around, I want to say it's around 11. Around 11. It starts at 10, but around 11, then we'll get some information because we'd love to have you answer any questions that they may have next Friday. Any other announcements? All right, so I'm going to welcome Dr. Chad Stebbins, who heads up all of our themed semesters, and he's going to introduce our guests. And so let's welcome Dr. Stebbins.
And thank you, Dr. Charlot, for allowing us to take over your recital hour today. Greatly appreciated. So you really can't celebrate the Czech Republic and have a Czech semester unless you have a program on Dvorak. And we're fortunate to find an expert on the famous Czech composer from our partner university in the Czech Republic, the University of Hradec Králové. We had 12 students and 3 faculty from Hradec Králové on campus last week, and about half of them went to the Happy Days musical on Thursday night, and they really enjoyed that. They don't really have musicals such as that one in their country. So our speaker today is Dr. Ludmila Krupova, an assistant professor in the music department at the University of Hradec Králové. She received her PhD in the field of music theory and pedagogy. In her research, she focuses mainly on the field of Czech song literature in the Romantic period, with a special focus on the songwriting of the composer Dvorak. And she was emailing me that she could spend forever talking about Dvorak, maybe as long as an entire semester. But she's going to try to limit it to, the 45 minutes or so that we have remaining today. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Ludmila Krupova from the Czech Republic.
Yes, hello. Good evening for me. and good afternoon for you. In Czech, we can say ahoj or dobrý den. It's our way to say hello to someone. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm really glad you are ready to listen something about Czech famous composer, Antonín Dvořák. The aim of today's lecture is to present him not only as a leading European composer, but also as a personality whose musical legacy has generated much controversy. So let's Dvořák be with us here now. Before we will talk about a specific person, we should say a little about the period in which he lived and created. Like or not, the period in which we live shapes us, and you can say we shape it. It's a two-way process. So, as you probably know, individual periods do not appear suddenly, like you go sleep and you wake up and you go sleep and it's classicism, and you wake up, it's romanticism. Their characteristics are formed gradually and are always in contrast to the previous period. So we can say that new periods are like teenagers because they want something new and different. Romanticism, there's this period in which Dvořák lived, came into being like a reaction to classicism with its sober reasons, rationality, and order. And in contrast to it, gave us strong emotions, imaginations, and it's according with the fact that every nation tried to find inspiration in its own history. Because in this period also, every nation tried to find its own music speech to consolidate its own identity. So the music performance were open for everyone who could pay the entrance fee, and many songs are printed and music is played a lot at homes, and classical music is open to many people now. Many musical forms are created in here, for example, symphonic poem. And into being came program music, which is finding inspiration in other sources, the mostly in literature, so in history, and maybe some paintings or some myth and fairy tales. So there's a time frame for our Antonín Dvořák. Finally, Antonín Dvořák to himself. In my annotation, I promised a complicated legacy, and here it is. Because on one side, we could say that the musical legacy of him is one of the basic of European culture heritage. But famous during his life, he was famous during his life. It's not so common because if you are a composer, you don't usually become famous until you passed away. So, but for more than 50 years after his death, his work was not performed much in Czech Republic, at least not on official occasions. Why was it like this? Some might say that he wasn't that good. We will see. I prepared a little bit facts about young Dvořák, because he was not just a composer, he was a person, he was a living man. He was born in the village, in a small village, northwest Prague, and all of his ancestors were butchers or innkeepers. So it was automatically assumed that the firstborn child would go on the business. Fortunately for him, he was obviously so gifted in music that his father allowed him to go study music. Young Dvořák was extremely short of money, so he played the viol in the opera orchestra and earned extra money by giving piano lessons. And now here comes perhaps the only romantic matter concerning Dvořák, because during his piano lessons he fell in love with one of his students, very platonic, of course. Her name was Josefina, and she's sitting one on the picture. And he met her in theater too, because she was quite known solo singer. She was a soprano. Later, she married some count. The interesting thing is that Dvořák later married her younger sister. Okay, soap opera is over. And now we will speak about Dvořák's compositional style and about his work. Antonín Dvořák belonged to the group of composers whose work is characteristic for its classical romantic synthesis. While we created a new original language for this means of expression, his compositional structure was usually founded on traditional forms, which were established in high classicism, especially his use of sonata form. But he introduced new elements into this traditional formal structure. Like a series of other the 19th century composers, Dvořák took his inspiration from folk music or from folk. It was common and very popular to do this. He also looked for inspiration in folk music other than Czech. For example, he found inspiration in Slovak or Serbian music. But he didn't use specific songs. He mostly created music based on folk music characteristics, but he didn't quote. I would like to introduce you one of these folk-inspired works. The first part, Presto, from the cycle named Slavonic Dances, because four-handed piano pieces playing them was a very popular pastime of this period. This Slavonic Dances was the very first work which brought Dvořák a huge success. If we talk about Dvořák compositional periods, he had many. The first three was just something like trying to compose. They correspond to the compositional level he had at that time. Dvořák was born 1841. So in the first period, he was just 14 or 15 years. So he was very young, and his work were often just school homeworks, and they had a purpose to demonstrate that the pupil had mastered his study material. Now it will be just better and better, because approximately from the year 1872 composed Dvořák in his own way. Because after years of searching, the composer was now able to speak, we can say, his own music language, use his typical means of expression. At this time, the quantity of the composer's production also increases significantly, and the first successes on concert stages appear. For the listening from this period, I chose the 9th part from Oratorium Stabat Mater, which is composed by the text of the medieval sequences about the crucifixion of Jesus. Yeah, this is the Latin part, and this is lyrics for you. In a number of the author's composition, it is the first significant proof of the author's piety and faith. It's aria for alto. Now the one lyric part of this. We are here in text of the Judgment Day. It's obvious that his wife was an alto singer, not soprano, because Dvořák alto arias are the best. So it was not so usually. Yeah. Now we have a Slavic period, and the composition from this Slavic period assured Dvořák his first successes on the international scene, and they remain some of his most frequently performed works to these days. In connection with the effort of the Czech for national emancipation, a number of artists turned to folk art. With Dvořák, these Slavic tendencies were the most natural, because he came from a small village and he was really connected with folk music. He took inspiration from the Czech folk music and the music of other Slavic nations. To listening from this period, I chose one of the Moravian duets. These duets chronologically are before this period, but they stimulated its creation. It's a cycle of songs for two voices, female voices, soprano and alto, but they are often performed by children choirs. Dvořák composed them and sent them to a publisher who liked them so much that he asked the composer to compose something similar for the piano. And so we heard the Slavonic dances, and these Slavonic dances were born. So it was a part we listened them in the beginning. So now Dvořák, Moravian duets, the slighted heart. All of these duets are quite short, but they are very Slavic and very optimistic. To the works from this period belong famous Slavonic dances, Slavonic rhapsodies, the Slavonic string quartet, Czech suite, and many other compositions which, while they might not contain the word Slavonic or Czech in their titles, in character they may be readily assigned to this group. Okay, I'm back. The next compositional period is called mature period. And during the early part of this period, Dvořák began to be really famous in Europe. Now, Dvořák was a mature, self-confident composer and the height of his career. In this period, he composed many works from all the musical fields. For example, for the Czech National Theatre, he wrote the opera The Jacobins, which would become his second most performed stage work. About the first one, we will speak at the end. With this internationally known came an offer, and it's quite interesting for you, because it was an offer at the end of this period to take up the post of director of the National Conservatory of Music in New York. To listening, I choose the first part of Mass D major. Originally, it was actually just an occasional piece composed for a new chapel, and it was performed by a semi-amateur orchestra, and it was ready in 3 months. But its music is so impressive that it is still performed today, and of course by professionals. I choose the first part, Kyrie eleison, so Lord have mercy. The most big part, and it's a very big solo for alto, of course. The next compositional period is called American period because it lasted just 3 years, and we call so Dvořák's time in the United States, because he worked here as a director of the National Conservatory of Music, and he worked in New York. He met here the music of the original inhabitants, and he dealt with it the same way as before with Slavic folk music. He was just inspired by its characteristic and used it in his works by his own way. He used here, for example, pentatonic scale, syncopation, or the special drum rhythms. From this period comes the most known symphony number, the 9, called From the New World. So for listening, I choose a song, a biblical song, number 4, which is interpreted probably the most from this cycle. I found one video from the church in Spillville in this town. There is Dvořák Museum. Dvořák stayed here in the summer of 1893. So, okay, the first biblical song, "Oh, my shepherd is the Lord." The Czech choir from Pardubice. So these are psalms of where Dvořák wrote this biblical song. Now we are just in American period, because now it's time for string quartet, because we haven't here any. The American quartet came into being, what a coincidence, also in Spillville. We can hear a pentatonic scale in this quartet. And now there is no need to comment the next lesson, because you are all know the theme for sure. It's a symphony number 9 from the New World. Largo second part. You probably know it, all of you. It's time for a word. And the last one from this period for balance, a bit of the fourth movement of this symphony, Allegro con fuoco. It means play with fire. Recording is not in high quality, sorry, but I like it because we could see which group of instruments has the main theme. So Allegro con fuoco, with a very fire. So play with fire. And now for the Dvořák finals period, It was after his coming back home. It's characteristic moving towards opera and program music. For his works, the composer mainly chose fairy tale and fantastic subjects or themes. The masterpiece from this period is the opera and 4 symphonic poems. The opera, we say Rusalka, it may be like Antonin, just like a mermaid. With this opera would secure the composer a leading position on the world's opera stages. We will listen the most known aria of this opera, Song of the Moon. She sings in Czech, but there are English subtitles in there. She's not a Czech singer, but she pronounced very well. We can hear and see, according to the words, we can see that the aria is very lyric and there is no happy ending for Rusalka. So we don't have so much time to show all of Dvořák's work, which is huge. So I at least summarized it by numbers. We can see that he was primarily an instrumentalist. Includes together 110 works. If you want to listen to all of his works, you wouldn't get out of your chair for 3.5 days. So he composed over 50 years. That's not bad. A little bit about Dvořák like a personality. If it should be said that he was not only a composer, he was also a person, and he also had hobbies and special features. For example, about composing, when he got a new idea and had no paper, he wrote it, his notes on the cuff of his shirt sleeve. He liked smoking and he preferred a pipe because just his wife forbade it him. So when he was at home, he used cigarettes, or he had to went out to smoke his pipe. If we wanted to count all of his honorary degrees, we would get well over 20. And for example, he maintained a rich correspondence. A number of correspondence reached over 1,500 letters. And now, you remember on the beginning of my presentation, I asked how is possible that Dvořák even thought he was already famous during his lifetime, but was almost never played in Bohemia for more than 50 years. The reason is very simple. Dvořák had a very powerful enemy after his death. I know it sounds like a Game of Thrones, but he was stalked and disgraced, and we don't know exactly why. The legend, in the legend, says that this guy, Zdeněk Nejedlý, you can see it's a really bad guy. When he was young, he wanted to marry Dvořák's daughter, and Dvořák kicked out the door with him. But this probably a legend because they probably never met personally. It's not true. Nejedlý was very smart and well read, but he was a historic, and he perceived the history of the Czech nation selectively. The right Czech music should be patriotic, progressive, and Dvořák composed on his own way. So, like to compose the music for the music, and he didn't care that much about non-musical program, and that was no good in Nejedlý's eyes. And Zdeněk Nejedlý chose Bedřich Smetana, respectively his legacy, because Bedřich Smetana died before Dvořák, and it was a Dvořák colleague or contemporary, and he was more Czech, more progressive in Nejedlý's eyes. So he literally started the fight for Smetana, and convinced that a lot of people that it's either Smetana or Dvořák. It's nonsense because works both of them composers is great, and everyone worked differently, but they respected each other very much. And both of them were dead in these years, so it was a battle between their followers. During the war, people had other concerns, but after the Second War, with the new communistic regime, Nejedlý became a very powerful man. He became Minister of Education and Culture, he became Minister of Social Welfare and Minister of Education. And in all these positions, he forbade Dvořák's work. While the world loved Dvořák's work, it was not played here on official occasions. Of course, he was played, but not as often as in such dignified conditions as he deserved. Nejedlý died 1963, and after that was the persecution of Dvořák works abandoned. But even so, he was not recommended by the communist regime as too cosmopolitan and returned to Czech stages only slowly. Now belongs Dvořák's work to the most played repertoire, even at home. By the way, because Nejedlý wrote on many historical topics, he was more of a historic than a writer, that he always developed the topic on such an extent that he could not finish it and stayed with the first volumes. So it exists a legend that was after his death, a sign appeared in the cemetery. He lies, Zdeněk Nejedlý, volume 1. So we can see that he definitely was not popular. At the end, I prepared some links about Antonín Dvořák, just to see that his work has a great reach and inspires many people and many activities. Just in our republic, there are 5 museums of Antonín Dvořák, and 1 museum is in Spillville in Iowa. So this is it. As I said, I would like to speak about Dvořák hours and hours, days and days, but I try hold my time. So I hope you enjoyed this meeting as I did, because every day I can speak about Dvořák is my lucky day.
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation. We just have a couple of minutes left. Does anyone have a question or two? I'm intrigued by the controversy at the end of your presentation, and what was this gentleman's motivation for trying to diminish Dvorak's career? What was behind it all?
We are not sure because I thought I talked about religion, but it was just a legend. Maybe it was nearly obsessing for Bedřich Smetana and for the right Czech music, which would be like this and this and this, and Dvořák went through his own way. I think we think it's just like this, just simple, just like simple.
This maybe petty jealousy, perhaps.
Not jealousy, because Antonín wasn't a composer. He was a historian, and he was a very clever man. But it was, I think it was a little bit personally. And it was a communism time.
Okay. Well, again, thank you very much for speaking to us from the Czech Republic, where it is now almost 9 o'clock in the evening.
Yes.
The Czech Republic is 7 hours ahead of us. So you're putting in the evening time for us. We thank you, appreciate your presentation, and best wishes to you. Thank you again.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about Dvořák on a continent that brought him so many inspirations. Thank you very much.